This is the Mind Body Detox Podcast, where we discuss all things integrative health and wellness, interviewing folks from all over the world, sharing insights and wisdom for how to live a healthier life in mind, body, and spirit. Today's guest is someone who has quietly but powerfully become a kind of emotional refuge for people all over the world. Diane Shiffer is the author of The Smallest Joys and the creator behind a deeply loved online presence that has reached over 1 million people. She had a career as an educator and a social worker, and Diane then stepped into an entirely new chapter of her life. And this is one that's made her what people affectionately call her internet granny. So she is like, I say Insta granny, or she calls it her chubby vintage Nana era. Now, when I first saw Diane's page, I realized why people followed her. It's not just for her content. It is for the energy and the comfort that she offers. You'll see through Diane's content that her work is rooted in equality, in love, in gentleness, and in this quiet but very powerful belief that noticing beauty is in itself a form of resistance in a noisy and often disconnected world. She's known for her poetic and deeply human reflections on everyday life, reminding people that even in this world right now that can feel so overwhelming or heavy, that there's still beauty, there's still kindness, there's still meaning, and often found in the smallest, most easily overlooked moments. So what's so powerful about that? This isn't just inspiring, it's very regulating. Because what I see in my everyday work is that when people are stuck in survival mode, they literally lose access to these moments of joy. And Miss Diane's work will help people find their way back again. Before we start the interview here, just noticing that we're going to have Diane as our author for May. So we look forward to you guys joining us for that. We're going to be having her join us and we'll talk a live Q&A with anything that we want to discuss with her. So that is coming up in May, and I encourage you guys to check that out. All right, Diane, I'm so glad you're here. So
I'm so happy to be here.
Well, the joy is just radiating from you. And of course, that's what we're going to be talking about today. But before we do, I really am curious, what brought you into wanting to present and share your worldview with the Instagram world? I know you were an educator and a social worker, and this was just your segue into another world, another life.
It was all like an accident, really. During the pandemic, at the beginning part of the pandemic, I started posting mostly in stories and Instagram, just like going through my day. And that seemed to like resonate with a lot of people. And people started actually watching my stories. And I remember I have a dear friend who her husband is a big YouTuber. And I remember my followers hit 1,000, like one singular 1,000. And so I posted like a very self-deprecating, laughing at myself kind of a post saying, oh, I've hit the big 4 digits and thank you to all the little people. She said, I know you're being silly, but I think you could do really well on social media. And she challenged me to go over to TikTok and start making videos. And she said, make a video every day for a month. And I was like, well, I can't do that, but I can do it during the weekdays, right? For a month, I'll do 1 video a day during the weekdays. And so the first video was very typical boomer kind of a jar of a mason jar of iced tea, lavender iced tea or lavender lemonade on my front porch, right? Like 17 seconds. And it got maybe 200 views. And I thought that was amazing. I was like, wow, 200 views. And so then in the evening, I realized, oh my gosh, I have to do another video for tomorrow morning, right? And so I was scrambling through my phone to see if I had any footage. And I had some footage that I had accidentally shot in time lapse of me doing my hair. A friend had asked me to do a video of me doing my hair so they could see how I did it, but I accidentally did it in time lapse. So I thought, okay, well, I'll put that up, right? And then my son came over and was taking me out for ice cream. And so I'm sitting in the front seat of his truck recording the voiceover. right? And if you listen carefully to that video, you can hear the truck radio in the background. You can hear the screen door slamming as he's coming out of the house to come into the truck. And just one take, just boom. And I put it up. And there was something about that video, and it just, I don't know what it was, to be honest, but it ended up getting millions of views. And so my second video, I ended up with like 50,000 followers, and it was just such a nice, like a jump start, right? And so that's how I got started. The funny thing is that what I thought my content was going to be did not end up being what my content actually is now. So I thought it was going to be mostly vintage fashion and homemaking and that kind of thing, which it still is, but I think the core of it, that's just all the supporting actors, right? And the core of it is nurturing and joy and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I was just so funny before I think it was 2 weeks ago, I had you on the schedule to get you interviewed for today.
Mhm.
And I hadn't actually deep dived into more about the book. And I was like, I woke up one day and I had this awareness. I said, oh my gosh, joy is such a contrast to the state of the world right now that it's so easy to shift someone's life. Like in public, you're just smiling at someone or I said, make some like maybe a little bit longer sparkly eye contact with your like with your checkout person. Like it's something that's like, so when I was like going into, I'm going to interview you about your book, and because I didn't get to read it yet because it's not out just yet.
Mhm.
At the time of this recording, I had this experience years ago where I expressed joy without any filter.
Mhm.
And it actually got kickback in the real world. Oh my
Mhm.
God, why is she so happy? There must be something wrong with her, right? So I want to dive into this question for you because I feel like
Mhm.
it's authenticity of just truly being you. People
Mhm.
want to see us. We want to see all of us like
Mhm.
uniquely who we are and be able to connect in that way. And if you layer
Mhm.
that with joy, I think that's just like the gift that you
Yeah.
offer. So yeah, like my work in this podcast, we talk about all different things when it comes to mind, body, spirit connection and how to live a
Mhm.
healthier life. And we talk about the nervous system a lot and
Mhm.
specifically the stress response because so many of us are in survival mode. So
Right.
do you feel like people actually need to feel safe before they can
Mhm.
perceive these like small joys or joy in general? Or tell us a little about what you're thinking because the world is so like in stress. And what do you feel
Mhm.
that when it comes to that? Yeah.
I think that I had so many thoughts going through my head. You asked such good questions, and my mind is just going in a bunch of different directions. I think a big part of joy and authenticity, all those things, part of it is my tagline is be so completely yourself that others feel free to be themselves too. And I think that's a big part of it is when I'm out here being my chubby self, right? Just I don't have wealth, I don't have conventional attractiveness, I don't have any romance or anything like that. All the things that society generally deems as successful and things that will bring you joy and happiness. I don't have a lot of those things, but yet I'm out here being unabashedly joyful and happy, right? And so I think that gives people permission to look beyond the conventional and look beyond the conventional in themselves and understand that true contentment, peace, joy is only truly going to come when you are authentically yourself, right? And that's such a gift we give to other people. When we're authentically ourselves, what a tremendous gift that is to others.
Now, did you work with small children in school when you were?
Yes, yes. Early childhood education is that's my thing.
I often say to my community that the joy of a child is so effervescently contagious
Hmm.
and you really can't shut your heart down when just a child's running up to you and it's like, look what I made, and they're like their pictures or their
Hmm.
sculptures or whatever they're showing you.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's something as an adult where we don't want to shine because we've been like, oh, then I'm like making everyone, oh, look at me, and this kind of weird sense of humility, this identity of around what humility really would mean. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, if you're just shining your joy, your childlike exuberance through you,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing about
Right.
that's from a sense of lack of humility. So, did
That
you learn more
is,
about that from your children you were working with when you were
you know what? I never thought of it in that way, but I love the way that you worded that, and the idea that as we mature, right, we filter ourselves, right? We filter ourselves for how we think is going to make us be perceived in the most, whatever light we're searching for, right? But a child is not filtering themselves, especially in those moments of joy. They're not filtering themselves. And once again, what a lesson we can learn from children, right?
That's
So,
why I think it shines even more when adults like yourself are just being it.
yeah.
And I think there's a contrast there within the world. So, do you
Mhm.
believe that you naturally born with just this exuberant joy, or do you feel like you had to allow thoughts, beliefs, things like that to fall away to be able to express more of this authentic you?
I don't think I was a particularly joyful child. I think I was very unique. I think I was challenging in a lot of ways as a child. But I tell my kids all the time that every decade is better. Don't fear aging, because every decade is better than the decade before. And I think growing to truly love and accept myself, which was a journey that really came through parenthood for me, right? And looking at my children and seeing how just loving them so much and seeing them for who they were. We see our children, we see their imperfections probably more clearly than anybody else. But even though we are so crystal clear, their limitations or challenges are so crystal clear to us, it does not impact on the love and respect and honor that we have from being with them, right? And so I think seeing my children in that light, it made me realize I can see myself in that light as well, right? I can see my own imperfections and challenges and still honor myself fully. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
It does. It does. Your children were a reflection of the love, the unconditional love that comes from a parent towards their children, even
Mm.
with the quote unquote flaws. If you
Hmm.
turn that around as a mirror to yourself, you can begin to see yourself with that unconditional love. That's what I, yeah.
Yeah, and you see your children's. I remember there was an incident like my youngest son, Noah. He had a little friend named Charles who was the most beautiful, physically beautiful little boy, so docile and agreeable and sweet natured and everything. And I remember we had Charles over for the afternoon and he was playing when Noah was just full. He is just bursting with energy, full of the Dickens all the time. And I remember looking at Charles and thinking, what an adorable child he was, but I would never in a million years trade him for my Noah, right?
Yeah.
And of course, we all feel that way about our kids, but it was a moment of revelation, right? Like, it doesn't matter. My child doesn't have to be any of the things that I might say I value. They don't have to have any of those qualities, they just have to be.
I
Yeah.
think what you just said there shines through in the love and the care and the kindness that you authentically express through your content. Because I know like, some people may not have had parents that have that level of
Mhm.
acceptance of their children. They still have their social conditioning and programs about what the right way to
Right.
dress is or the right way for the child to act and the discipline of shh, or
Hmm.
you're being too much or whatever that authentic
Yeah.
expression of
Yeah.
that child is trying to come out. So I
Hmm.
think that's also I'm sure you hear this all the time. How many people contact you and say the energy of mom, grandmother, nurturer, like just how much it's a comforting
Yeah.
for them.
I know I mentioned earlier how the core of my content is different. I originally thought it was just mainly going to be like vintage stuff, right? And I did a video. I'd maybe been making videos for 5 or 6 months. And I made a video where I was welcoming the viewer to come up onto my front porch and share a cup of tea and a cinnamon roll, right? And in that video, at the end of it, I said, tell me all about your day. I have all the time in the world for you. It makes me cry because that was the video that told me what people needed from me, right? And the number, thousands and thousands of people who had been young people mostly, who had been basically cut off from family members
Yeah.
because of, for whatever reason, right? They were no longer in contact with their grandparents or their parents. And it just, I was shocked. And it was like, this is what I need to do. I've said many times, people need kindness, and kindness is something I can do. That's what I do.
And the presence with the kindness. I think there's kindness in itself anyone can offer and price to practice, right? And then
Mhm.
kindness when you are embodying non-judgment in your being and you're authentically being yourself, there's a special magic to that I think people
Well,
really
thank you.
truly feel. And yeah,
Mhm.
and especially after the pandemic, I think even within the last 20 years with the political landscape and the pandemic, and so many people had so many arguments and polarizations about what was the right way of being and disagreements, and because of so much fear, that I think
Mm.
the polarization caused a rift between I've had many people I know that
Yeah.
lost family members that are no longer on speaking terms. So
Mhm.
what a gift and a joy that we have the technology that we have right now, that we're talking today, that we could reach so many people that need that.
It is such a gift. And I often have thought to myself, what a huge gift I have been given. I mean, as you get to this stage of life, you start to think about what you're going to leave the world, right?
Yeah.
And with the knowledge, the absolute knowledge that we pass away, and it's not too many years after we pass away that we're forgotten, right? And I have been given this incredible gift that long after I'm gone, I'm still going to be able to give to people, right? It's like the things, those moments that I craft that I'm hoping will be meaningful, those are going to be around long after I'm gone. I mean,
Yes.
that, wow. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That ripple effect. I
Mm.
cannot wait to read your book, but more so listen to it too. And we're going to talk more about
Mhm.
it because you read the audiobook. For those of you
Yeah.
listeners, get the audiobook and the physical copy, read them together. I love your idea of like micro joys.
Mhm.
And your recent content post, you put something about how can I experience joy in a world that there's so much pain and suffering? How can I not feel
Mhm.
guilty about allowing myself to feel joy? I'd love for
Yeah.
us to chat about that.
That's a huge struggle, I think, for all of us right now.
Mhm.
And I remember I posted a video at one point about this type of thing, but it was mainly about doing something, like instead of being out there like rage posting or posting comments and things like that, go out and do something. Go out and volunteer somewhere, do this or do that, right? And a woman about my age who was a very well-meaning person who I agree with on many points, right? But she was like, "No, I'm not going to. I need to keep that rage boiling so I can." And I understand her passion, right? I
Mhm.
think we all do.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is that rage is doing absolutely nothing for the world, right? That rage, all that does is effectively paralyzes us
Mhm.
from doing action that will actually be helpful for the people that we are so impassioned for, right? And I think, like recently, many of us went to sleep last night worrying about whether we were going to wake up in the morning to a nuclear event, right? And I think we have to hold these two things as two streams in our consciousness. We don't want to be so focused on our own joy and peace that we ignore, right?
Yes.
But we need to give ourselves joy and peace and contentment, even, so that we can, first of all, handle those horrors, and second of all, be effective in fighting against them, whatever our role is. We all have different roles, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Ah, exactly, about being effective. And I'm going to reiterate just for the audience, for those who either just joining us and haven't listened to the other content. So much of mine is about regulating our energy, our nervous system. And when you're in, I can understand what you said about wanting to stay in rage, because when people are in so much fear, there is this, I don't feel safe. And if I'm in rage, then it subconsciously makes us feel that we have control. Oh, I
Right.
have the energy because it'll keep
Mm-hmm.
me on. I'm hypervigilant. I'm looking around. But just even
Yes.
from the neuroscience, like the higher part of the brain, the neocortex, which is connected to creativity, to
Mm-hmm.
mystical experiences, to connecting with the divine, and having the ability to then see how things are connected and be innovative, which we need innovation, that part of the brain shuts off, or it's not as
Mm-hmm.
functional.
Mm-hmm.
So it moves into more of the survival animal brain. But I think also rage and anxiety too, they drain our energy. And joy
Absolutely.
gives you energy to go out and
Mm-hmm.
do the things that you're feeling impassioned about, like you said about,
Absolutely.
yeah. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so grateful that
Mm-hmm.
that's because that was actually one of my questions. Some people do feel, if they don't hear this conversation with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
If they're
Yeah.
in such a place of fear, or they have this part of themselves that's a strong protector, that protector, I think when it's online, when it sees someone being very joyful, it says, oh, they're not even real. They're not even really
Mhm.
dealing with
Yeah.
the world. They're bypassing reality.
Yeah.
And it's an act of rebellion.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
so
I have had
powerful.
people saying, "Is this AI? Are these videos AI?" I'm like, "No, if it was AI, I would be thinner. I wouldn't have any wrinkles." And
Well, that's really good AI though.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow. What are some of the things, like, for someone who wants to tap into joy, but they feel so
Hmm.
flat, they feel so numb?
Hmm.
What are these entry points for people
Mm.
that you suggest, or ideas on that?
You know what? I'll go back to when I first started. When I was young, when my children were young, I was a single mom and my life was extremely stressful. And I worked at a job that was so draining and I loathed it. I'll tell you, I loathed going into work in the morning. I loathed leaving my children, but you do what you have to do, right? And I can remember one day sitting in my car. It was like 8:55 and I had to be in at 9 o'clock, right? And I had a cup of coffee I'd gotten from the drive-through, and I'm like, okay, I have 4 minutes. I can sit here before I have to get out of the car and get in there, right? And I remember sitting in the car, it was raining, and just holding my coffee cup and feeling the warmth of that cup and watching the raindrops come down on the windshield and hearing the rain on the car. And there were shrubs with greenery and pink flowers on them and they were blowing. And I remember just being in that moment, right? And actively pushing everything away and being there and appreciating the beauty, appreciating the warmth, and letting it just like now we talk about grounding and things like that. And this, I had no idea of any of that. I was talking to my daughter earlier and I said, what is peace other than regulating your nervous system? That's what it is, right?
Yeah.
And so I think, like you talked about an entry point, I think taking those moments and don't dismiss those moments because they're only moments, right? Don't be like, oh, my life is a mess. It doesn't matter if that shrub is beautiful, right? Be like, no, I'm going to absorb this beauty, this safety, this pleasantness because I deserve joy and safety and beauty. I deserve all these things, even if it's just for a moment. And it feels like it wouldn't matter, right? It feels
Mhm.
like 4 minutes of beauty and peace is not going to make a big difference, but somehow it does. Somehow it
Yes.
does.
Yes.
Yeah.
It builds, I think, also when you're in highly stressed situations, like you said, as being a single mother and the working. And I have had a real life experience with one of my friends who was going through so much stress, and single mother. And she's also very in touch with her body and the earth. She's an herbalist, so she's very much into
Mhm.
making the physical things that bring us back into pleasure and nourishment of the
Mhm.
body.
Mhm.
And I noticed she would just tell me about something that was happened that was really stressful. And then she would just shift into, oh my gosh, look, I love her curls. And just, she would just sink back into pleasure like a little girl, like, or flirting. Oh my gosh, look
Yeah.
at that. Like this pleasure and this joy and this
Mhm.
gratitude. She was looking, look how beautiful the sun is. And I think that's what kept her so much resilience in her. And
Mhm.
it was one of the things I think that started to bring that back online for me, because I'm a massage therapist and I'm educate
Oh.
most people working with trauma to get back in their
Uh-huh.
physical body, to feel safe being in their body and calm the nervous system and all that.
Mhm.
And I know that we are mental. We're very mental.
Mhm.
And being just in the moment, like you experienced that, I guess you could say grounding, mindfulness, all the different
Mhm.
labels for it. Diane, people do drugs to experience that,
I
right? They
know,
do,
right?
unless they have a really great meditation practice, and people don't realize you can cultivate this sense of awareness through practice. But
Absolutely. Yep,
yeah,
100%.
yeah, yeah. What are some of the things today that maybe come to mind that you experienced that just brought you this state of?
I was thinking about little tiny things, those little micro moments, right? And I was thinking how our day can be peppered with those things if we allow it, right? So I'm just going to think about the last 24 hours, maybe. Sitting in bed before I go to sleep, I always put my little cuticle oil on, and it smells really beautiful, like an almond oil, and I rub it in, and I'm just sitting there. My room is very dusky, and the cats are on the bed. I do it every night. And I'm thinking, I'm going to sleep now. Nothing is going to be demanded of me, right? There's nothing I can do. There's no productivity I need to do in this moment. I am just going to get ready to relax. And so that's one time moment. I went out this morning to do my little driveway walk. And when I came outside, on the banister of my porch stairs was frost all down that banister. And it was like white frost on the white paint. And it was just so beautiful, right? And so I stood and looked at it a moment, and then I put my hand on it and felt the coldness and the little sharpness of the little frost crystals. And I slid my hand down, right? And one of the cats that I feed the feral cat community. One of them, a battered old tomcat, right? He came up close to me today. I'll probably never be able to touch him, but he came up close to me. And I think that's what it is. Instead of moving through the day and thinking, oh, that's interesting, and then shifting away, spend
Yeah.
a minute there. Somebody else might not care about the frost or a stray cat, but they might care about a beautiful car, right?
Yeah.
Or a particularly attractive piece of clothing, something. But whatever it is that you feel that little spark inside of you, the interest or appreciation, let it grow. Let it grow.
Yeah.
Give it a few minutes.
Give it space to be.
Mhm,
Yes.
mhm,
Now, I adopted in my practice for
mhm,
being present and mindful and embodied, I adopted something I call my power object, because I believe
mm,
we're in our power when we're authentically being us and just being settled and feeling content and and
mm.
joyful too, right?
Yep,
Joyful is part of
yep.
that sometimes. And sometimes we forget and we get in the head, or we get into the pace of life, the
Mhm.
grueling, fast pace of the world around us. And
Yeah.
my power object is something that I guess it came to me, and it's probably common for many people. Something as magical as rainbows. Okay. I love rainbows,
Mhm,
love them. So,
mhm,
because anytime I was in a busy headspace and was not fully present and was not stopping,
mhm,
rainbows were the thing that no matter what, I just was like, I gotta just look at this thing. Not just the rainbows in the sky, but prisms. And so I got prisms to put in my windows, and I have one
mhm.
in my motor vehicle and hanging from
Oh,
the rear view,
wow.
so that there's
Yes.
rainbows in my car all the
Uh-huh.
time.
Oh.
So that's my power object, because I feel like
Mhm,
there's sometimes when you're starting out trying to be present and stuff, like sometimes
mhm,
it's really hard to make it as a practice. But what I
mhm,
found is when I said, this is the thing that really just calls me out of my mind and
mhm,
into this
mhm.
being state, they started to show up more, noticing them more.
Yes,
So
yes.
I'm curious if there's something for you that no matter what, is it a sunrise? Is it something like the steam coming off of your tea mug? Is it something that is even, let's just say a little extra, we'll call it
Mhm,
loud when it comes to distracting you from what was going on. Oh, I just got to be with this thing. Is there anything like?
Yes. First of all, I just want to say how wise you were to recognize that in yourself and to give yourself putting the prisms in your house and in your car, right? That was such a wise act that you did for your own self. So I want to just give you a little clap and say I admire you for that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And I think for me, honestly, there's two things, and I never really thought of them in the light until I heard you talk about it. So I appreciate that you framing this question this way. I would say one is the steam coming off of my cup. That is huge for me. Like, and I always, so often when in my Instagram stories, and I've just started doing TikTok stories too. But I almost always will post a picture of my morning coffee with a little hashtag sit and stare time. And a lot of the time I do an actual video so you can see the steam coming off. So, and I love it so much that I'll even pop my cup into the microwave for 30 extra seconds just so I can really enjoy that steam. But the other thing is breeze, like a breeze blowing is just I just love it so much. I love the visual of it, seeing things move in such a orderly and chaotic at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Way and the feeling and the smell and yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you for introducing that concept, the power object concept.
Yeah.
That's really
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I think it's important that we find we have something. And I think like some people identify it like, oh, my spirit animal, or every time I see butterflies, or something
Mm,
that just really, really is magical to like their little
mhm.
child, their authentic
Yes.
child self comes out, goes, oh,
Hmm.
look at that. Also,
Hmm.
bubbles, Diane. I love bubbles
Oh.
so much. I just discovered the other day, there's so much joy in this. So when 10 years ago, I had this like idea, I was like, you know what? I want to invent something. And I was like, I want to invent glow in the dark bubbles. Why don't they have glow in the dark bubbles where, like you can
Yeah,
turn them on and like apparently I
absolutely.
never did the idea. It was just a thing.
Mhm,
And I went about my
mhm.
life. They exist. I'm so excited that they exist. So I'm going to get some.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be
Yeah.
fun to do that sometime when you're outside on a summer evening when it's dark?
Yes. Yes.
Watch, that would be wonderful. Ooh, I love
Yes.
that idea.
My clinic that I run is called Firefly Hollow Wellness Center.
Oh,
And
mhm,
so, of course, fireflies. They are
mhm.
absolutely magical. Where are you located, Diane?
Western New York, upstate New
Okay.
York, and we
Okay.
have lots of
Yeah.
fireflies.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
It's very fortunate. There are not many places, and we're very
Mhm,
fortunate to have them. So, yeah, they're also very magical.
yes. Did you used to catch them in a jar when you were a little
Yes.
kid?
Yes. Yes. That's the thing. And then you want to make sure
Mhm.
you put holes in the top of the jar so they
Yep,
can
yep,
breathe. And I
yep,
always
yep.
wondered, well, it depends on how long you keep them in there. Would they be
Mhm.
okay without them? Am I going to kill
Uh-huh.
them? Are they going to be okay?
I know, me too. Our little compassionate hearts, right?
I'm curious about this idea that keeps coming up, what we were talking about the guilt that people have about
Mm,
being able to experience joy. We kind of touched on
mhm,
that. But
mhm,
what about resistance to it? Do you have
mhm,
any idea for someone that might feel like this might be unsafe to be joyful? I'm curious about that because I'm trying to think about audience members who, like, where is there not access to joy because of something within them or a fear or something like
mhm.
that? Have you experienced anyone that says anything like that, or you have any words of wisdom about that? If you notice people are having resistance to experiencing joy,
A lot
what are
of
your
people, I
thoughts?
think now they do have that resistance. I think it is guilt. It's an awareness of, in a way, it's maturity, a positive kind of maturity because we are taking responsibility for our own part in harm that is taking place to the vulnerable, right? So, and when we are aware of our own privilege, it can feel wrong. It can feel disrespectful to those who are experiencing harm. If we allow ourselves to feel joy, then it feels like I'm not being fully respectful of those who do not have my advantages, right?
Yes.
I think my advice or my encouragement probably is better than advice. My encouragement would be to frame it as giving yourself strength for the journey. And that's truly it. Because if I felt for one instant that denying myself joy was going to help those babies, I would
Yes.
put myself in sackcloth and ashes and beat myself with a wet shillelagh 24 hours a day, right? But
Yeah.
it does not do anybody any good. It does no good whatsoever. But if I allow myself joy, if I allow myself peace and emotional regulation, if I allow myself to be strengthened by those things, then I can do the work that I am designed to do. Are you aware of Sharon McMahon? Sharon Says So.
No.
She is a creator who does a lot of political and social content from the perspective of, she was a history teacher, a high school history teacher.
Mhm.
And she wrote a book called The Small and the Mighty, which was on the bestseller list. She has another one coming out, I think in May, which is The Small and the Mighty, like as a children's book. And it's mainly about people, like unsung people from history, who did their small little thing, right? Like Rosa Parks, right?
Yes.
Her small thing, right? And that ended up having, as the ripples went out, it became a big thing, right? And so if we weaken ourselves by grief and rage, we cannot do our small thing. We cannot do our important work, because all of us have important work to do, even if it seems tiny.
I think we often underestimate the power we have. And I
Yes.
cannot remember who it was I was just speaking to, whether it was on an episode or in person. We were talking
Mhm.
about this same concept about that so many people in history that go down the history books, we hear about these heroes and we go, oh my gosh, they were so amazing. There were many people that during those
Mhm.
times that were, like you said, making an impact, and that ripple effect goes
Mhm.
out. And this is where we tie into this whole systems thinking. We're all
Mhm.
about the patterns and systems thinking on
Mhm.
this podcast and helping people understand how everything connects and this
Mhm.
ripple effect. So I'd
Mhm.
love to maybe see if you have any stories or thoughts on when you shift this internal state to joy, but still holding your
Mhm.
values for diversity,
Mhm.
equality, inclusion, your religious openness, and everything you're about for just love, like love and kindness and
Mhm.
equality.
Yeah.
How do you feel like that ripples out in your world? It's
Mhm.
rippling out. But what would you
Mhm.
say for others, how that can ripple out?
I think you just have to trust. You have to trust the power of your own mission. Okay. Whatever that mission. I remember years ago when I was a single mom and working hard and everything, every Monday morning I would get up really early and I would make muffins or some kind of baked good, right? And I would hand them out from my front porch. And I remember there were some homeless people that used to come on Monday mornings. And I actually became friends with many of them, right? And that is such a tiny thing. I don't know if it ever had any kind of a big impact or anything beyond the half a dozen people that ate my muffins every Monday morning, right? But that was my mission in the moment. And I think that whatever your mission in the moment is, you need to trust that has power even if you don't see it.
Yeah.
It boggles my mind. I was talking to my friend Vivian the other day and I said, would you ever have imagined that I would have millions of followers? It's mind boggling to me, right? And so now it's easy to think, oh, I have a lot of people watching me, listening to my words and that kind of thing. But I think the mission of making the muffins for half a dozen people was just as powerful as the mission of making videos for millions of people.
I completely
Yeah.
agree. We have to find our Muffin Monday, whatever that is
Yes.
for us.
Yes, exactly.
Gosh, yeah.
And it strengthens, those little things also strengthen you, right?
Yes.
Because you never know when your big moment is going to come. I remember Fanny. Have you heard of Fannie Lou Hamer? She was an icon of the civil rights movement. She was a single mom and very impoverished and everything. And she used to cook in her kitchen and feed the civil rights workers. And she is my She's my everything, right? She's the one that said she's sick and tired of being sick and tired. Yeah, yeah. But she's incredible. And what was she doing? She was just making food for people,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I don't think in that moment she realized that 50 years from now, millions of people would be just reverencing her, right?
Yes.
She didn't, that was her little tiny mission, but it's inspired millions over the
Yes.
years. Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
It's nice to think about the listeners. I challenge you right in this
Mhm.
moment to just take a moment to think about what is that one thing that you just effortlessly do that you just know that is a gift that others could be receiving. And even if it's just being present with someone, a very common thing we do is we have clerks at checkouts or we go and we're seeing people in public places that are strangers. I just think being present with people and saying hello and holding doors, it's smiling at
Mhm.
people. Even if
Mhm.
they get really startled, there's sometimes I've noticed that people get really, it's almost too much. Like, why is she smiling? It creates a little bit of fear. So there's an art
Mhm.
form of not freaking people out too much with your, because it's
I
not,
don't think I don't think I've mastered it quite yet. I do freak people out sometimes.
well, that's also a question. Is it still being, am I still being kind if it's making them uncomfortable because of where their comfort zone is where they are?
Mm,
Or is it
yeah.
still, is it being inauthentic if I'm then like, let me back it up a little bit? And I
Mm,
guess maybe I think about it like if you were talking to a small child, you don't look down at them usually and talk
mhm,
down at them. You usually try to get on their level and crouch down and be there
mhm,
with them so you don't scare them because then you can actually give
mhm.
them love instead of
Yeah.
you might have to calm your voice, talk a certain way. I kind of see that with everyone. Not that we're saying
Mhm,
that someone who's not experiencing or receiving joy is below us or beneath us. I don't mean it like that, but I do think that would be something to challenge yourself to think about. What is that thing that you know that you can do right
mhm.
now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we all have things we can do, and
Yeah.
it's all important because if we all do our little part, then it all gets done, right?
Yes. Yes. Now, I have two main types of people that really are drawn to my work in this podcast, and it's the people who are the empaths, the healers, the sensitives, the people like that who want to give loved up. And I think that my perspective is practicing this gives you more energy, it gives you more resilience to be
Mhm,
in the face of grief and sadness. Now, still allow
mhm,
yourself to go through those emotions. But then we also have the high achievers who are like, oh, to get stuff done. They're like the warrior spirits of help
mhm.
in a way that isn't as sensitive to those things. But then I'd say, from the perspective for them, motivation for you is challenge yourself because the more you do this work, the more it brings you the capacity to do greater and do more and embody more love.
Mhm.
Yeah. What do you have to say for the high achiever sensitives out there?
I think when I was listening to you, I was thinking how it's all a journey, right? And that the work that we do at this part of our journey is probably much more imperfect, right? We might be freaking people out with our joy or our over exuberance, and but it's still part of it. It's still in its imperfection. It's still wonderful, and it's part of our journey, and it's part of our learning process, and part of our honing our skill of being an encourager or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
don't demand perfection of yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think for the high achievers, that's even more important
It
to
really,
not
really is.
demand perfection of yourself.
Yeah. And I think in a world where we place high value on intellect, academia, are you smart enough? Are you good enough in that arena? And
Hmm.
one of the stories that I will share here is when I used to work at a restaurant when I was a single mother, and they have a big ice machine that just would pour all these. It was probably 4 feet deep, 4 feet wide. You get in that baby. And there was something, my inner child was so fascinated. Not that I wanted to get in it, but I think if I was a kid, I would probably be like, what happens if you get inside and just sit in the
Yeah.
ice? Your brain
Yeah.
starts to think that way. But you have to scoop the ice out into a smaller bin near where the soda fountain was. And I was scooping the ice, and every time I would scoop the ice, the light would hit the ice just a certain way that you could see just the light. And I just would get so joyful. And I'd talk about, like, you guys, have you
Mhm.
seen this ice? It's so amazing. And I would get people would just walk by, rolling their eyes at me. There goes Kara again. And it was so funny to me because I really got the impression, and I found out this and confirmed this later, that people thought that because I was just so joyful and so
Mhm.
curious, that it equated with lacking intelligence. not as smart because I was
Mm-hmm.
so just that there's such
Easily
an oh
amused. Yeah.
yes, that the
Yeah.
openness was confused for a lack of
Mm-hmm.
discernment
Mm-hmm.
or a softness that could be harmed or in naivety. And I
Yes.
want to just see if you went on that briefly because I do think that there
Mm-hmm.
is so many people that might resist coming off a quote unquote certain way, especially if
Mm-hmm.
they have conditioning around if you seem like you're not smart by being
Yeah.
open and authentic and vulnerable in your joy,
Mm-hmm.
it might rub people the wrong way or they'll judge you.
Yeah. I think that's true. Easily amused. That's an insult, right? I say that about myself. I say that's my secret to life is being easily amused.
Yeah.
But I remember when one place that I worked, one of the offices I worked, because I am exuberant and always looking for a chance to build somebody up and everything, that people were taken aback, right?
Yeah.
And they were taken back a bit. And I remember after I'd been there for a few months, somebody I answered the phone and my office mate's husband was calling her. And I answered the phone. I said, "Oh," and I've never met him. Never met him. And I said, "Oh, I've heard such wonderful things about you," and blah 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 blah. And I could tell he was very taken aback, right? And so he said, "Just tell her to call me." And she and I were talking later, and she said, yes, we're all taken aback by her at the beginning, but we all loved her in the end. You have to let go of that concern about what people are thinking of you, right?
Yeah.
And be your whole weird self. Be who
Yeah.
you are and accept the fact that that's not going to be everybody's flavor, right? I'm not for everybody, but if you are truly being your whole self, then eventually people will come around to love you or respect you or at least recognize that within you that has integrity and constancy, right? We're not
Yes.
going to be everybody's flavor, but if we are always being ourselves, we will get respect for that, if nothing else, right?
No, you're absolutely right. It was someone else I follow who makes content on Instagram, and he was saying the other day, you just got to be authentically yourself and be weird because you know
Yeah.
what? After a while, you just consistently be weird, and people at first are like, "What is this dude doing?" But then after a while, they are like, "You know what? I don't know. He might be crazy, but at least he's happy," and then they
Yeah.
accept you. And
Yes, exactly.
so
Exactly.
yeah,
And you know what? What's the point of not being yourself? Because if you're not being yourself, if people like you or respect you when you're not being yourself, then it's not you that they're really liking or respecting. It's this
exactly.
imitation.
I guarantee you guys that if you, here's a social experiment for everyone out there listening, find people that you see in the world at this point that people just love them no matter what. Like, why do people
Mhm.
love these people? I
Mhm.
guarantee you that it's because those people are just authentically being themselves. Yes, we have celebrities that have performance and they have an aura and they have costumes and things they wear because we love performance too. But there is something, I think Billy on the Street is a comedian and he had
Mhm.
this woman that he met in New York City that has just, she's fully authentically herself and she's just so real. And
Mhm.
everyone loved her because she just run up to
Mhm.
random strangers. And then because she was on the show one day and everyone just, I love this lady Elena. Why is she so amazing? And
Mhm.
it's one of those things where she's not someone you would think would be that people would be interested in. But I started
Mhm.
watching this pattern, this trend of people just want authentic and maybe even sometimes eccentric people. Like Jeff
Mhm.
Goldblum
Mhm.
is my
Yeah,
favorite. He's my soulmate. Where
he's
Jeff,
wonderful.
I love him.
Yeah.
And it will, like you said, when you're working there and it just they kind of got
Mhm.
used to. I worked at this chiropractor
Mhm.
for 8 years, and before I left, I think the one lady that worked there, she had been there for a really long time, and she
Mhm.
said to me, "Kara, when you first started working here, I really thought you were really weird, but you really grew on me. I was really like, thanks. I'm really grateful
Mhm.
that I made a difference in your life. Yeah,
That
it
was
really
very
am.
gracious of you.
It
And
was
I think the whole point, though, is if we're not being ourselves, what is the point, right?
yeah,
What is the point? If you're having to work so hard to craft
yeah,
at some kind of a persona that you think people are going to respect, and yeah, it's just so not worth it. So
right.
deeply not worth it.
I have one more question for you before we wrap up here. And this is a question we talk about the neuroscience around manifestation or law of attraction or being able to have things pop up for you, or even if it's a prayer that's answered. We all talk about
Mm-hmm.
this, we all being the same sort of mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that the more joy that I notice my clientele that I work with that they embody, and the more authenticity, they're in
Mm-hmm.
this just stream of who they're supposed to be, or they
Mm-hmm.
are already, I should say, not supposed
Mm-hmm.
to. And things just seem to line up for them. I think that people, we have this, I think there's a magical mechanism of
Mm-hmm.
things just aligning and small gifts. And it's like the more you notice them, the more they start to come. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
curious about that. If you have had any experiences where like synchronicities or serendipitous moments seem to happen, and maybe even from moving into this space where, say, you had a moment of grief or sadness and you were kind of not in that joyful spirit,
Mm-hmm.
and then shifting into it, then things started to just flow. Any experience with that?
I would say that I've had so many experiences in my life of things going my way that I could not even begin to name them all. I'm trying to think. I'll tell one. It was when we were very strapped for money. I had actually quit my job and was trying to start a business as a doing seamstress work, because that's another one of my passions is sewing. And my ironing board broke, right? And if you know anything about sewing, you know an ironing board, your iron is just as important a tool as your sewing machine, right? And I did not have the money to buy myself a new ironing board. And I was driving down the road with the kids and I said, I just remember praying, dear Lord, you know, I need a new ironing board. And literally, I kid you not, we came up over the rise in the road, and there next to the road was a brand new white, sparkling clean ironing board. And I pulled over and I said to my son, grab that ironing board and stick it in the back of the car. And he goes, what, are you taking trash from the side? And I go, no, that's my ironing board. And I can't even tell you how many times I've had those experiences. Like the other night, I was laying in bed and just wrote my book. And I remember thinking, wouldn't it be cool if I was on the New York Times bestseller list? But which has never occurred to me till that moment. Never once occurred to me, right? And 2 days later, my agent called me and said the New York Times is tracking my book.
Oh my gosh, girl. That
Yeah,
is
yeah.
amazing.
I probably am not going to actually make it to the bestseller list, but still,
Yeah.
what I often feel like that is my life.
Yes.
And I wish I could give you a formula or a reason. Can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed a pattern with people is people say, oh, that person's just lucky, or
Mhm.
there is a pattern that I notice in people that seem to have these serendipitous synchronicity, or they say,
Mhm.
I can attract things, or my prayers are answered. And it seems to be joy and gratitude and presence because there's listening.
I
You're
Yeah.
listening to life and it responds to you when you
Mhm.
request or you ask or you pray.
I believe that. I think you nailed it right there. And it's not like I deserve it. There's no part of that in it at all, because there are so many other people that are so much more deserving that have not had all of the joy and blessings that I have.
Right.
And if the world was ultimately just, they would be
Yes.
getting it, not me, right? I don't look at it as if I'm doing something or I'm particularly worthy or I'm clicking all the boxes or anything.
Right.
But I do think that joy and gratitude are, and I think a certain amount of expectation too. I do have this expectation that things are going to work out for me.
Trust.
Yeah, trust. Well said.
Because
Yeah.
I do know
Hmm.
people from all different walks of life and people that really are challenged, and there's so much going, but when, and I would say the argument for people would say, like you said, there is privilege. We have privilege. We have to be aware
Hmm.
of it. But if you are in really challenging times, and I know I went through so many of those myself, and I
Hmm.
know people that have that are still in challenging places and times, but
Hmm.
the people that seem to really have the resilience, even if their ups and downs of things happen for them happen like where they're really up and everything was going great and then they fall really down really far.
Hmm.
But the thing is that they seem to have some sort of faith and they really trust life.
Hmm.
We'll do an experiment with that. Notice the patterns. If you see people,
Hmm.
are they joyful? Do they have gratitude? Do they have trust? And how much of that do the people carry in their personalities that you notice? And how much do things seem to go well for them? And experiment with yourself. If that seems to be a thing, see what happens. I think it's a curiosity. It's never a definitive, this is the right way or this is the ultimate truth. I think it's all about life experimenting and being curious and finding out what works.
I think you're right. I think it's a spiral too. You get caught in a positive spiral.
And a negative spiral sometimes.
Yeah, we're just not going to talk about that though.
Yeah, we do. We definitely get caught in each of those. But
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
Life always spirals us out back. It redirects us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So anything else you want to share before my final questions?
I think you've been a wonderful interviewer, and this has been a joy. And I love the way you phrase things and the way you approach things. It sparks so many new thoughts in me, and that's been really wonderful. I appreciate that.
That sparks a memory of mine. When I graduated massage school, we had to write on note cards to all our other classmates of the gifts that they have or whatever. And every single one of the cards, there were like about 17 people in my class, they were, you've given me new perspectives. You have different perspectives, new ways of thinking about things. And I guess now that you're saying it again, I thank you for saying that. It really is confirming that might be one of my gifts.
I was going to say it definitely is.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Final questions. I always ask you for the people for the first time they've come on the show. The first one is, what is your favorite self-care indulgence? It could be a product, it could be a TV show, something that you're like, oh my gosh, right now, this is what I'm really into for myself.
I would say it's just the same old thing that I've done for 30 years, which is my morning cup of coffee and giving myself just, sometimes it's only 3 or 4 minutes, but giving myself permission to just be in that moment and find something beautiful and concentrating on it. That's my number one.
Yeah. Yes. And watching the steam.
Yeah, watching that old steam.
Perfect. What my brain goes to, because I have my mug here for those of you watching the video too, and I have the same thing with steam. But my interesting thing is, like, when I have the prisms and the light coming through the window, sometimes the rainbows land right on the steam. And it's like a double whammy of
rainbows. Yes, rainbows and steam.
Yes. And I'm really enjoying this marshmallow creamer that I have right now. It's I'm non-dairy, so it's this delicious creamer I really enjoy. So the final question I have is, Diane, if you could detox one thing, either in your life or the world right now, what would it be?
Oh, that's so hard. There's so many things. I would say online. You mean, what would I like to remove?
Yes, from the world.
I would say because my life is so online, right? Because of my work, that I would say online toxicity, especially that kind of trolly thing that is people that are just commenting to provoke.
Yeah.
I just feel like that's so sad, because it's like they're not even, it's one thing if people are really expressing how they feel, there's at least a positivity in that, but people that are just trying to provoke and upset, I wish.
Yeah, in a world that we feel so out of control, trolling is a thing that's like someone's unconscious way to learn how to manage that and find some sort of control over others. Yeah, and I think arming yourself with joy, not even that can't arm you and defend you from some of those hurtful things that people say. So I think that's important, honoring that.
I think being compassionate is the best way to arm yourself against that. Yeah. And also assuming positive intent whenever possible. Those are the best ways to
I love that.
Inoculate, vaccine yourself against those.
All right. So one last thing I want to kind of ask you, is there any particular quote or thing in the book that really either stood out to you? Because I'm going to wrap it up talking about the book and the book club coming up that you're going to be doing. We'll do a live Q&A with you. But I think about the book that you want to maybe mention for our listeners who are going to be picking up this book or the audiobook, either or, that you want to mention, either a quote or something that didn't get in the book that you wanted to be in there. Anything at all that we could know?
You know what I think, in light of what we were talking about, there's an essay that's called Embrace Your Inner Weirdo, and it's about just growing up as an oddball and getting to the point where you can truly embrace, your whole self, whether you're a weirdo or not, and just be joyful in spite of that. And I think that in many ways embodies a lot of my growth trajectory over the years, is kind of fighting against the things in myself that were a little odd, to embracing them myself, and then being embraced by others because of those. Right? I love to encourage people to give the gift of their whole self to the world, right?
Yes. One of my other
Don't,
guests said, we need more weirdos in the world. We need us to show up
absolutely.
in our full weirdness.
Absolutely.
Yes.
100%. I agree with them.
Yes. This has been such a joy.
Oh, it
Such a joy.
has.
I'm so grateful for your time, and we're looking forward to
Oh,
seeing you. We're going to have you for May. You are our author
mhm.
talk for our Hay House author, and you'll be joining us remotely. We will see you then live,
All right. I'm
Q&A
looking
in
forward to it.
May. But thanks everyone for listening. And thanks for being with us, Diane.
Thank you for having me.
Bye. Thank you for listening to the Mind Body Detox podcast. If you love this podcast, share it with others and leave us a review. Your reviews help us more than you know and supports us continuing to make episodes and being heard from all over the world. You can also follow the link in our show notes to submit a topic that you would like to hear on the show.